Does anyone else think it's ridiculous when a job application says minimum 2 years experience needed in the industry, but it's an entry-level position or an internship? So you need an internship to get the experience, but no one will give you an internship because you have no experience. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm 21 years old and I've got some big goals for my life. I want to graduate college next year and move away from Minnesota for a while and see what else is out there in the world. One day I hope to, find love and continue living myself, of course, and get a well-paying job that I actually enjoy. And even though I do not have a path figured out for most of those dreams, I do have a start in the last one, which is getting a job that I love in the field that I want. Surprisingly, I currently have an internship in the field of work that I want to go into in the future, and I'm starting to actually have something to list under the elusive and confusing relevant work experience section of my resume. So how did I do it? And sorry, one second. Oh my. But anyway, how did I do it? How am I gonna keep doing it? And how can you do it too? Oh ho ho, well that brings us to the theme of today's video and allows me to introduce my new series called Growing Up, where I get to talk about the things that I've learned in life so far so you don't have to figure them out painfully for yourself. So without further ado, let's talk about getting the job experience that you need to get the future job that you want. I needed to stand up for this. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna need to think about when you want to get an internship is building your resume. Some categories often listed on your resume are work experience, leadership experience, volunteer experience, and education. Resumes might also include a mission statement of sorts, telling the person who is hiring you what sort of position you're looking for, and they might also say your special skills. However, you're gonna wanna try to fit this all onto one page as much as possible because people have really short attention spans. They're just gonna skim it probably and look at the stuff that's at the top and in bold. So keep it as short as possible and concise. And you can always mess around with the margins when you're trying to make your resume to expand it a little bit and give yourself some more space, or play with the size of the text, but you really want to try to keep it to one page. Also, of course, you do not want any typos on your resume because then they're going to be like, does this person even know how to type? Do they know how to do basic things like spell check? Obviously you do, so please make sure you don't have any typos on your resume. So I'm going to take you through my resume in the order of what's on the page so you can make your own. Okay, so the very first thing on your resume is going to be the heading. And in the heading, what you're going to have is your name really big and bolded, your address so that the employer knows where you live, not in a creepy way, but just so that they can tell if they're offering a position that's in person and not remote, if you're gonna be able to drive there in a reasonable amount of time, and if you're close to their home office or anything like that, then you're gonna wanna have your phone number and your email because that's probably how they're gonna contact you if they're offering you a job. So the first real category that you're gonna have on your resume is work experience. I used to have education first on my resume when I was younger and didn't have as much work experience or impressive stuff to share, and my education was my #1 quality. But now I have actual jobs that I've had that are relevant to the things that I'm applying for in the future, so I want to put those first because they're the most important things to me. So you're going to list your most recent jobs first and your least recent at the bottom. And the format that you're going to use for writing down each job that you had is the title that you had when you were in that position, and directly following that, the title of the company. And then on the far right side of the page, you're going to say if it's a current position, or you're gonna list the dates of when you had the job. So I usually don't get too detailed on my resume, saying the months and stuff, but I usually would say the season. So if it was a summer internship, then I'd say summer 2019 is when I had that job, and list that on the right side of the page. You don't have to list every job you've had if you've held a lot of them. The people looking at your resume might assume that you've had more than are actually listed there. I used to list that I tutored this girl when I was 16, and that I had a job at the front desk of the recreation center at my college, but now those aren't really super relevant, so I don't usually put them on most of my job applications just because I have other stuff that takes up more room. Along those same lines, sometimes I curate my resume to the job that I'm applying to. So for example, I worked as an event coordinator or an event planner when I was 16, I think, over that summer. So even though I had that job a long time ago, if the job I'm applying for calls for something involving event planning, then I usually keep that on my resume because it's a relevant work experience. Okay, so then back to the format. Under each of the jobs that you held, you're gonna use bullet points to say what you did in that job. And you're gonna start each bullet point with an action word, and you're not gonna put a period at the end of it, you're just gonna let it end. So what I mean by an action word is words like navigate, navigated or managed or created, you know? So you'd start a sentence like that. These don't really need to be full sentences, and you're definitely gonna wanna take out any unnecessary words and just put in like keywords of what you actually did during this job. So an example bullet point under a specific job would be created a social media plan for future Instagram and Facebook pages. So that says like what I did in the job very clearly and very short and concise. It does not need to be a full sentence, and please take out any unnecessary words because like I said before, people have really short attention spans and they're probably just gonna skim and look for the important words. And if your resume is really hard to read, they might just like look at someone else's resume instead. That's easier to see like exactly what they did in each job, and you might lose an opportunity because of that. And if you want more resume tips about like what to include in the work section or how to get your first job and all of that, you can leave that in the comments and I'll see what I can do and maybe make another video about this in the future. Okay, and then the next two categories that I mentioned are volunteer experience and leadership experience, and as I've grown older, these two have kind of merged for me. Like I used to have my high school volunteer experiences on here, but now I just have leadership experiences listed as a general like overview. So if you were the president of a club, you would put that in your leadership experience, or if you were a captain of a sports team or a leader within your sorority or something, you could also put that in leadership experience. And you're gonna format it in the same way that you did before with the jobs. You're gonna list the title that you had and then maybe list the location of where you were doing this. So if it was at your college, list the name of your college, and then on the far right side, you're gonna list the date that you did this. And then again, you can put bullet points underneath to say what you did, probably less than in the work experience. Just try to keep it to 1 or 2 bullet points for each one, just so it's shorter unless you have something really, really important to say. Okay, so now we're on to the education section. Once again, you're gonna list your most recent things first. So if you're in college right now, put that first and then put like your high school stuff below it. But honestly, once you're more than like a freshman or sophomore in college, you can probably take your high school education off of your resume. I think mine's gone now. Yes, it is gone. But I did keep one part of my high school education because I did the IB program, the International Baccalaureate Diploma, whatever. So I left that on there because that's like a big achievement and that shows like what kind of student I was in high school. But anyway, when you're listing your college education, you're gonna put your major first and then any minors or concentrations that you have. And then you're gonna say the name of your school, obviously, the dates that you're attending it, obviously, and then you're gonna list your GPA and any awards or honors, so like scholarships you have or Dean's List recognitions, things like that. And be sure to put your GPA on your resume because a lot of employers look at it to see if you're like a hard worker and care about getting things done on time. So they might like look at your GPA to see how well they think you're gonna do in their work environment. This is also where you put study abroad experiences. So if you studied abroad in college, this would be the place to list that on your resume. And you wanna list this on your resume because it shows you experienced different cultures and you can talk about the things that you learned in the countries you were in. And also if you went to a country that speaks a different language, then you can say that you gained fluency in that language if that's what happened for you. So that's also something really important to include on your resume. Almost every job or internship you're going to apply for is going to ask for a cover letter. And I probably didn't write my first one until I was like 19, and I assure you the first one was not too hot. But now I've probably written more than 30 because every job I apply for asks for a cover letter. And unlike your resume, you can't really just send the same one to each company because a cover letter is specific to the company you're applying for most of the time and tells them why you really want that job specifically. So you sort of need to write like a different one every time you apply. But overall, why you write a cover letter is because you want to tell the employer why you want the job and why you're the best candidate. And you want to show off your writing skills because it's like an entire page of writing of like 3 paragraphs or so. So you do not want any typos in your cover letter either. So the format that I usually do for a cover letter is I start by saying, "Dear internship coordinators of blank company." Something like that, so you know you're talking to like the hiring team. And then you do an intro paragraph where you talk about which position you're applying for and why you want that position. And then you do a body paragraph which talks about a specific job that you've had in the past and how it relates to the job that you're applying for. So the way that I usually start my second paragraph, like the body paragraph, is saying what year I am and what college I go to and listing my majors and my minors. And then I go into a previous work experience that I held and I list the things that I learned in that experience and I list how they're going to directly apply to the job that I'm applying for. So this is your paragraph to get really specific and expand on parts of your resume that you couldn't really say all the things you wanted to about in your resume because it was so condensed and short. And then in the third paragraph of my cover letters, I usually say like what sort of job I'm looking for in the future. And of course, I thank them for taking the time to read my letter. And I say that I look forward to the opportunity to work with them in the future. And then I sign it with my name, my email, and my phone number so they can call me and contact me super easily. You're definitely going to want to create a portfolio to send to the employers when you're applying for jobs, especially if you're going into an industry that has something to do with like visual things. Like if you're going into architecture or design or photography or even digital marketing, you definitely want to show off your skills in a visual way. Oh, or if you're applying for a job that's writing based, like a journalist, you're definitely going to want to send articles to the employer when you're applying for a job so they can see how your writing style is. So you can use a website for this, but sometimes you have to pay for like the website title and pay like a subscription to use like that website or that domain for the month. So what I currently do is I have a Google folder with work samples within it and a Google Doc within it with links to the articles that I've written and the social media pages that I've managed with links, so it's easy for the employers to like click on those and see everything right away and like see what I've done, you know, see my experience. Basically what you're trying to do here is make it super easy for the person to hire you. So if they see that you've done a ton of awesome work and you have a lot on your portfolio, then they're gonna be like, okay, like this is the one for us. Like they're trying to hire someone as quickly as possible. They don't want to search for months and months. So make it easy for them and put all the things they're gonna need in one place. If you're looking for a job, make a LinkedIn. I've gotten 3-ish internships now without having one, but if I had one, it would have been so much easier. But you're gonna want to make a LinkedIn as soon as possible because it shows that you're dedicated to your job search and that you actually want a job. Because LinkedIn pages make you look professional and like you're on top of your shit, and that's like 100% exactly the vibe you're trying to give off to future employers. So just take everything that's on your resume and slap it in your LinkedIn. And if you have nothing currently on your resume, just put in what school you go to. Just start one so that you're discoverable and so that people can find you and know that you're serious about finding a job. And then start connecting. Basically the point of LinkedIn is that it's a networking website, so make some connections. I think my first connections were my parents. I requested that they connect with me and they did, which was really nice of them. But then just go for there, like do your siblings next, and then look at that, you'll have a few connections already. LinkedIn is just an easy way to see what jobs are available and see if the people that you know have jobs available in their companies or where they work. And we're in like the last category, you guys, which is the interview. I'm gonna put my jacket back on just so I can act all professional the way that you're gonna act when you get that interview. So I can make a whole video on just interview tips, or like 6 videos, honestly. And I literally will if this video blows up. But here's the quick and dirty on interviews. So if you think about it, if you've already sent in a resume listing all of your experiences in your lifetime basically, and a cover letter telling the employer why you want the job and why you'd be the best one for it, then why do they need to do an interview as well? Well, interviews are basically just to see how personable you are, how well spoken you are, and how dedicated you are to getting this job. So overall, you're gonna want to speak slowly and clearly and smile, of course, and show your personality, know your resume extremely well, because you're gonna get asked specific questions about like probably a lot of the bullet points you have on there and about the jobs you've had in the past. Another thing you need to know about interviewing is to do your research. Before every interview I have like half a page of a notebook like filled out, looking at the company's website, writing down like what they do and like everything that I can find out about them, because if you don't know anything going into the interview and you ask a silly question like, what do you guys do? Or like, what's the product you sell? They're gonna be like, do you even care about this job? Do you even want it? So be sure you're prepared. Like one time I was applying for an internship that had a podcast component as well. Like the company made a podcast and the employer brought that up and I was like, oh, I actually listened to some of the episodes of that, and they were very impressed because I'd done my research, and they're like, oh my gosh, like you've heard of it? And I was like, but I just found it off their website. But regardless, you should be prepared for like any question they could possibly ask you about their company as well as your resume and your experience. Okay, and then something that happens at every single interview is that the employer is going to ask at the end of the interview, at the end of the 15 or 30 minutes, depending how long it is, they're going to say, do you have any questions for me? And you're not going to say, no, I don't, like I know it all. No, no, no. You are going to ask a question, 2 questions, maybe 3 questions. You don't really need to ask more than 3 questions, but at least 1. And it can be anything, but do not ask a question about information that can be easily found on their website, because again, that's just going to show them that you don't really care that much. So some questions you could ask would be like, what does a typical day look like in your company? Or what made the previous person who held this position great at their job? Or what are some of your company's goals for the next quarter? Asking these things is going to show that you're really interested in this position, and also you're probably going to learn something new. Like answers to any of the questions I just listed would be actually pretty interesting to learn, and it's going to help you you know more about the job that you're applying for. Also, okay, big tip here. At the end of the interview, you want to say thank you, of course, and then say that you're still very interested in this position. Because what most people don't realize about interviews is that sometimes it's like the person who's applying for the job learning more about the company as well, and seeing if they like what this job seems like once they hear more about it from the employer themselves. So if you don't tell them, like specifically tell them you're still interested in this job and looking forward to hearing from them, they might assume that you're not. So definitely say that. And then after an interview, something else you can do is to send a follow-up email thanking them for their time and saying you're looking forward to talking to them again soon. That just really sends the message home that you want this really badly and you're willing to do almost anything to get this job. Woof, oh my goodness, that was a long video. But I hope that it was helpful. I feel like it probably was. Like, I'm getting the vibe that that was a very helpful video. I hope you're getting the same vibe. And if it was, please subscribe to my channel. You know, that'd be really nice of you to do. And if you want to leave a comment below about other videos you'd like to see in this series, this growing up series, please do that as well. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.